Hi everyone, and welcome to our conversation on sustainable banking. My name is Fiammetta Leuzzi and I work in strategy at Tink. And I'm very pleased to have here with us our colleague David Lais from the ecolytiq team. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm David, one of the co-founders of ecolytiq, and we're very pleased to be here.
Very happy to have you here. So just for context for our listeners, Tink and ecolytiq have since June of this year announced a partnership on providing jointly solutions for mobile banking, specifically in the sustainability sphere. We think that with Tink's ability to drive engagement in the mobile and digital banking channels, we can leverage and capitalize on this and help ecolytiq drive more sustainability and sustainable behavior into the mobile banking world. How do you feel the demand, David, is from both a user side but also a bank side? Based on our recent research, we see that there's about 4 in 10 consumers in the UK that would be very interested in seeing more from their banks into their mobile and digital channels in terms of sustainability, whether that is tracking their carbon footprint per transactions or just getting nudged on how to improve their behavior. At the same time, we also see that there's not that many banks that are actually working on this. So what's your perspective? How do you see it?
I think, first of all, I think the topic of sustainability has become such a, I wouldn't say mainstream because it kind of feels wrong to say it, but it's become such a integrated part of our lives, right? We all started to care about the topic, but at the same time we're realizing it's very complex. So should use the plastic bag, or should I use a fabric-based bag? But then I realize, a fabric-based bag, maybe I need to use it 100 times, but if I use a plastic bag twice, it actually becomes more sustainable. All of those things, which are it's tremendously complex, right? So I think the logical next step is, can someone please help me navigate this? Because I want to do my fair part of doing something good and solving the crisis, but at the same time, please help me, right? So I think this is where financials or the financial world just goes very much hand in hand, because if we like it or not, a lot of the things that we do are usually connected to a payment. Yep. So we have some really, really good data on how to measure our individual environmental footprint and how we can take actions on it. So it really goes hand in hand. And if you look at it even further, there are even financial well-being aspects embedded into it. And we see that this topic is increasing. We see also that most of the banks are now see the chance and the opportunity, trying to wrap their head around what do we need to do, how should we leverage this opportunity. But the really good news is consumers are ready, consumers want it, and even if you look at some other studies in the market, greetings to our competitors, by the way. They have found even higher numbers looking for it. Yeah. Might be a little bit biased, but I agree, right? The consumer is ready, and I think that's a good one.
Yeah, the consumers are ready, and from a banking perspective, we also know by collaborating with several kind of large partners, thankfully, in the industry, we see that sustainability is a top priority for our large colleagues and bank partners. Yeah. Do we feel that we are ready to meet the very ambitious targets that banks have on sustainability when it comes to decarbonization of assets, when it comes to helping the users to see more of their climate impact? Do you think that there is a strong potential, untapped potential out there for us to help on?
Definitely. Do we meet the targets? We have to, right? So what's on the stake? On the other hand, we have to manage the crisis, right? So I think it's not a question on can we ever meet the targets? It's more a question on, all right, we have to meet those targets. So let's work on solutions on how to get there, right? And I think working with the consumer demand is one aspect that works, that we see works pretty, really well. And if you think about sustainability, it is a transformation. And it's a transformation of our economy, it's a transformation of our society. Everything needs to be changed, right? That is more in line with our planetary boundaries. That means we need to have capital to change certain things, change our infrastructure, change the way we're living, Doesn't matter if it's a house, transport, everything kind of needs to be touched. And that requires investments. And luckily, as a society, we have found an institution that is really, really good at managing money. And luckily also our customer base. So exactly, and I think this is where we can help, definitely.
Yeah. If we look more into the timing, why now? Why is this relevant now? We know that there's a lot of themes that are actually very important for consumers and for banks all over in Europe. Sustainability is one of them, but we also see another theme that is becoming more and more important in the past 12, 18 months, and that is basically helping customers on managing their cost of living, reducing their cost of living. In some sense, one could say that the topics of cost of living and sustainability go hand in hand. In some aspects, they diverge. What's your take on that?
Well, to answer the first question, why now? Well, we should have solved it 50 years ago. So waiting every day longer is like, now is the time, right? So time is ticking. I think that's one of the elements. So we need to act yesterday. But apart from this, we often tend to think sustainability actually costs more money. And the reason is, if you look at sustainable products, they have the environmental cost priced in, right? And that is usually something that we ignoring. But if you look at the cost of the opportunity, if we not solve it, this becomes really expensive, right? And funny enough, we reached a point where sustainable living doesn't necessarily always need to be more costly. So if you think about the energy transition, right? If you go and you have a home and you have the ability to afford a solar roof and all of the things, you will learn quickly that it actually saves you a lot of money, right? Or if you invest into sustainable products, you will see the return of invest is really good, right? So there's no compromise anymore of doing good and changing the world for the better versus not doing it, right? And I think the same thing goes also, I think we need to unlearn certain mechanisms that we learned over the last couple of years. My grandma, for example, right? She had a 30-year-old washing machine, right? And it still works. And I think if you buy a bit of a premium product, you will learn there are products that help you maintain it for way longer. And in all of the aspects we learned, right, buy, consume, throw away, buy, consume, throw away. That's the pattern that probably not work anymore. On the other hand, I mean, that washing machine was still working and was cleaning clothes, right? Why the hell do I need a new one, right? And so I think if we start focusing and saying, if you look at the time span of 30 years, that washing machine was extremely cost effective than buying every 3-4 new years something new. Right? And I think if you look at these aspects, actually sustainability is extremely affordable.
So you're saying that joining forces together, we can, and by being in the hand and in the pockets of every customer in the mobile banks, we can help them make choices that are more long-lasting, both a sustainable impact, positive sustainable impact, but also a cost-effectiveness component.
Yeah, we can be, a digital guide that can help you navigate the complexity.
Yeah.
And whatever choice you make is entirely up to you, but I think giving you the knowledge of making a good choice, it's number one. Yeah. And while it is a transition and while we need to change a lot of things, well, for the banks, there's a lot of opportunity in there to place their products, to take me as a consumer on a journey, or even as a business on a journey of saying, look, David, we're going to invest more in renewable energy. We're going to invest in other elements. Would you like to join us?
Could you perhaps run us through what are some of the key features or the user journey for sustainability and mobile banking?
Yeah. So we essentially start by raising awareness, right? So we have a module, what we call eco-aware, where we essentially calculate your environmental footprint. So we built an open methodology in our non-for-profit, which is basically also open source, but it's the foundation of calculating or translating every of your purchases into a CO2 equivalent. That's the foundation of where we start our conversation, basically. The second part is, building engagement around it, but also more of a form of education, right? Because if you tell you now, okay, your last grocery shopping was 100 kilograms, you're probably saying, okay, that's nice, but what's next? So we're trying to build context around it, right? Where are you compared? What is it, what you can change? We allow you to individualize it. What's your typical dietary preferences? Do you eat meat? Do you eat vegetarian, for example? So we provide you context around it, so you generate an understanding. And the third and last part is enabling you to take action. And take action could mean on a behavioral change side of things, right? Now you should probably eat a little bit less meat. All right, how do you do that? What are substitutes? What can I do, etc.? So we educate you around this. But also we combine it with the products of the banks, right? So you might look into a green roof, so why not or a solar roof, why not looking into green loans from a bank? You might want to invest a little bit of your spare money into the energy transformation. So it's action is basically the part where we want to empower you to feel part of the movement, feel part of taking your the things that you want to do to solve the crisis in several ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think all of that you just mentioned is a perfect example of why we at Tink think it's so important to partner up with players like you guys. We want to offer the best possible solutions to our end users and to our bank partners, and we think that it is super key to leverage each and every player's kind of depth and expertise in their own field and use cases. So truly the beauty of partnering up and coming together is showing in these types of examples. To summarize, I think as a user in the future, having both a Tink and ecolytiq type of journey powered in their mobile app, you could just simply take up your phone, wanting to see how much you've spent in the past month, in the past week, and being able to see that, but not just that, also being able to understand what the environmental impact of your purchases as a user has been for the past week, for the past month, and so forth. How that has changed, and perhaps also receiving a bit of tips on how to improve it. Absolutely. So that the mobile interface doesn't just become a source of information for your spending, but it becomes a source of information to optimize your spending behavior, both from a cost effectiveness perspective, which hopefully we can help with, but then also from a climate impact perspective. And I think that's truly the type of joint ambition that we are striving for, adding value to the user from different angles.
I agree. And maybe to the topic of collaboration, we have a truly global crisis and we can only solve it together. So collaboration is key, and giving you expertise in how we can build engagement on digital channels around banking, financial well-being, etc., I think, and combining it with the topic of sustainability, it just makes sense. And enabling then our customers to enable their customers to save the world, I think it's a cheesy line, but it seems to work.
Yeah, and this is clear on the synergies and how it comes together. Then we look at it from a solution perspective. I always like to play a bit of the devil's advocate, but how do you feel about certain diverging aspects of the solutions? For example, in the financial world, in the spending management world where Tink comes from, we have to be 100% accurate that the balance that we're showing to the customer, that the categories, that the type of enrichment that we do on top of the transactional data is correct. Otherwise, it can lead to poor user experiences.
Except you double down my balance, I would not be mad at you as a bank.
No, obviously, more is always better from that perspective. But how do you feel that plays in with sustainability instead? Are we there yet to provide that 100% accuracy on the impact that users have with their spending?
Yeah, we get this a lot, and I think it's about the accuracy, about the numbers, and how do we actually know what we bought at this grocery store and so on. Yes, and there's still a gap, but the good news is it's a data problem, right? It's a fundamental data problem. So even if we would know that you bought a cucumber and a pepper or whatever, we still wouldn't know where this is coming from. And it can have a massive difference of where that cucumber actually grew. So we're talking about a global supply chain that needs more transparency in order to have really accurate numbers. So of course, when you come from a financial perspective, you want to make sure the accuracy is high, because you don't want to double the balance from David's account, even though bank, listen up, please do. I think it's not a question of accuracy, it's a question of does it work? And the numbers are scientifically correct, they're really good, and they don't have to be 100% accurate. So it doesn't matter if you have spent 100 kilograms or 102 kilograms at a grocery store. What matters is, where are the areas where I can start acting on? And through levels of individualization that we allow to our refinements, we can go one level deeper. But we can only go as far as the data allows us to do. And I think there is still I wouldn't say a problem, I would say there's a little bit of a barrier, but it still works. And that's the beauty about it. And while we're solving the global data problem on transparency, we're going more and more accurate. And I think that's the beauty about it. So it works for now, and it will work in the future, and it will get better and better.
That's indeed very exciting. How do we feel about key takeaways from this? I mean, we've discussed a lot, we've covered a lot of ground, but if we have to now, for all of our very busy listeners, what are the top 3 things that we should remember about the value of sustainability in mobile banking?
Yeah, I would say your customer wants it, they value it. You as a bank, you have an immediate opportunity around it, and well, it's good for the planet.
Yeah, and I would say that it's also never been easier. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this session, and see you soon.
Thank you.